Hello and welcome back to the Mindful Education Summit. I am Chris Willard. I'm a mindfulness educator, psychologist, and author, and one of your hosts for this wonderful summit. And in this session today, we'll be talking with Ali Smith. He's the executive director and one of the co-founders of the Holistic Life Foundation in Baltimore, and we'll be hearing about actually beyond Baltimore as well today. And he's been bringing mindfulness and yoga to diverse populations for more than 15 years, really one of the pioneers in this work of bringing mindfulness and yoga to kids. And so we're going to talk today about what yoga and mindfulness programs look like in the schools where he and his team have been working, how it's impacting the students and the communities at large, and why connection and compassion are really just keys to all of this work. So Ali, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So a lot of us know about HLF already, but for those of us who don't, can you tell us a bit about the Holistic Life Foundation and what are some of the programs that you're currently bringing into schools?
So the Holistic Life Foundation was started by myself, my brother Atman, and our adopted brother Andy Gonzalez. About 18 years ago, we were fresh out of the University of Maryland College Park. Our focus is on bringing yoga and environmental, not as much environmental now, mostly just yoga and mindfulness-based programming. Started off with a push in underserved communities, but we realized that everybody's stressed out and everybody can use these practices. So it's pretty much any and every population you can possibly think of, we're delivering these practices to. A lot of what we do is school-based. I'd say most of our programs are school-based, K through 12. We do a lot of programs in community. We do programs in drug treatment centers and detention centers, adult and juvenile, mental illness facilities, anywhere and everywhere you can possibly, in corporate settings. So like anybody since everybody needs these practices, we had to figure out creative ways to deliver them to people that what spoke to people's struggles. And I think that's what we're really good at doing, is engaging people with the practice and empowering with the practice.
Fantastic. And how did you get started with this, with your own practice and then wanting to start to share it? What's the story there?
We grew up, my brother and I grew up with a dad who was into meditation. And at that point, a lot of hatha yoga was what he was into in his personal practice. So he kind of forced me and my brother to meditate every single morning before school. Sometimes willingly, sometimes like he was a PE teacher and a coach. So he laid down the iron law, and sometimes we were just forced to meditate in the mornings. But I mean, it was what it was. Yeah, not too much yoga back then, or not too much breath work, or not too many mindfulness practices, but definitely the meditation practice. And as we got older, I mean, things your parents kind of force on you, you kind of get out of. So like middle school was when we stopped. I guess my 6th grade year or 5th grade year, we stopped meditating, and never really thought about it again until like the end of college when we met Andy and started asking questions about life in the world. Our godfather was the one that introduced our dad to the practice. And then he was the one that we went back to kind of delve deeper into the practice, so kind of reintroduce ourselves to the practice. And it had a profound effect on us, so much so we felt like the urge to share with other people. And our godfather, before he taught us, made us make a promise that if he wasn't going to teach students, he'd only teach teachers. So we had to go out there and teach if he was going to spend the time to lay all the information on us. So I think with the effect it had on us, the promise we made to our teacher, and just the kind of situation the world was in, where the three of us were living in we were living in a rough neighborhood in Baltimore. We lived on North Pulaski. It was like we were broke because we had just started the Holistic Life Foundation. Our friends were coming by and trying to visit us. They would come by and visit us to try to figure out what we had to be happy about. You know what I mean? Like physically speaking, I mean, like on this plane, what do we have to be happy about? Like, you guys are broke. You guys live in the hood. They couldn't understand it, and we were trying to figure out why they were doing well financially, driving nice cars and good jobs, living in nice homes, and we're totally miserable. So we definitely knew it was because of the practice, so we knew that it was time for us to start sharing the practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's such a good point about, sort of what really matters, the circumstances you're in, and kind of, what's around you versus what you're doing internally, what your inside work is, and how you want to really start to share that and bring happiness, as you said, to your friends who look like they maybe have something on the outside, but are feeling this emptiness inside. And I always love hearing about where people get started with practice and again, how like those seeds get planted when you're young,
Mm-hmm.
maybe being forced to practice, but then, coming back to them later in life when we need them, that's when they start to blossom. That's when we can go back and start to water those seeds again. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it was definitely a point where we felt like we needed it. Like the life trajectory that most people were kind of throwing at us of like, graduate from college, get a good job, get married, have some kids, retire, die. There had to be more to this existence than that. Like that wasn't flying with us. Like we were like, nah, that's not acceptable. Like we need to know there has to be something deeper going on for us to be like, there has to be something else going on. So we went with it, and I think the inner journey was the only thing that was satisfying us.
Yeah. So these days you work with so many different ages, different kinds of students. And it sounds also like expanding and building some partnerships out beyond Baltimore. How are you adapting practices for different people, different places? From where you began to now working with so many more different kinds of people, different kinds of schools and places. How's that working?
It's going great. I think one thing our teacher did with us when we were learning the practice was he made sure that we had a huge toolbox to work from, because you can't teach the same thing to everybody. The practices can be similar, but there's going to be different practices that are going to speak to different people. So he made sure we had a big toolbox to work from. And I think that another thing that he did is he told us we needed to make our classes fun and engaging. Like if somebody's having fun, they're smiling and laughing while they're learning something, they're more likely to go back to it. And it's more likely to resonate with them. And also speaking to people's struggles. Like if I can tell you how this practice is going to help you with things that you're struggling with internally and externally in your life, you're going to use them because you're going to feel good. I mean, the practices work. They've been around for thousands of years. It's just a matter of whether or not you can use them in the moment where we're helping you, where we're teaching them to you, and then kind of take them out into your life, because that's when it really starts to make the change. Like the first time you're extremely angry or extremely pissed off or extremely stressed out, and you stop and you can slow yourself down with your breath, like that light bulb goes on. You're like, whoa, I'm in more control than I actually thought I was, and I can actually kind of take the time to slow myself down, and I know how to do it. It's very empowering.
And I think that word, I think, has come up in a few of the interviews I've been doing as I talk to people is empowering. Like it is empowering to have some control over your breath and then some influence over your life and some effect over how you're feeling. And everyone can relate to that, wherever they are, to be able to look for more of that and wanting a little bit more of that in life. And I think also the way you put it by, it's so important to make this fun. And what we know from learning, like you said, in general, is like, when we laugh, when we're having fun, our minds just open up to more, right? We can relate to other people through humor, through having fun together, and then the practices can really start to take. And I do feel like that's so key. Like, what are the ways you feel like you make it fun and make it more interesting for kids?
I'd say for kids and adults, I mean, I'm just thinking like ways to make it fun, like just telling our own stories of how we mess up. You know what I mean? I think like people, I mean, there's been plenty of times where we've gone and spoke somewhere and people are like, oh, well, I get angry unlike you. And then I'm like, unlike me, like I was probably angry this morning. You know what I mean? It's just like, I guess people think because you teach this stuff that like you're some, I don't know, like they put some label of perfection on you around like not having to deal with anger or stress or sadness. But I mean, I'm a human being, you know what I mean? Like that's part of the process. That's part of the human existence. So it's like, I just have tools that I know work and I use to kind of pull myself back to center when I start drifting away, or if I start getting into a dark place. Like, you know what I mean? Like like I said, the practice of work, it's just a matter of whether or not you can use them in your real life to pull yourself back to that centered and present moment. So I think that's what it is. I mean, like we'll tell stories that, I don't know, that just resonate with people, and we have fun with the practice when we're teaching. So I think it's just kind of that fun kind of permeates the classroom.
And so authentic too. I think that's the one thing that teenagers in particular can just tell whether we're being authentic or not. And as one of my friends likes to say, like that's a matter of survival for a lot of kids. But I think just that authenticity of like, yeah, I'm not perfect. That's why I still need this practice.
Yeah.
so important for kids to see that, to hear that, but also to see it in us. We can say that, but to really model that and show that to them too.
Yeah, because it's called practice for a reason. Like, you're never really going to get it perfect. Like, I mean, you're going to be, like, I feel like every time it's been one of those things where I feel like I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got that under control. Like, the universe will throw that curveball at you and present it to you in a different way. And then you struggle with it, you rumble with it, and then you figure it out. And then there's another curveball thrown at you. So I think it's just understand that it is a practice. You are going to mess up from time to time, but it's just a matter of learning from those mistakes. And, like, I think the practice does make you more resilient. So your bounce back is a lot quicker from those mistakes. So it's not like you get knocked down and you're down for a really long time. It's just your bounce back is a lot faster than most people.
Right, absolutely, and making those mistakes on the cushion and off the cushion. Like, the cushion's like where we practice it. So one of the things, speaking of mistakes, like, I think one of the ways a lot of people probably know about Holistic Life Foundation is, a few years ago, you guys really went viral with that story about, like, schools replacing detention with meditation, and look at these incredible results. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's such an exciting thing. Can you give us the story from your perspective, not just the little Facebook post that some of us see out there? Can you share about the alternative discipline approach and what that really means in terms of your values and your actions?
Yeah, so we got challenged by our program officers from the 1440 Foundation a few years back to come up with a school-wide initiative. Dita Badu and Yila Sarli, to this day, they hold a very special place in our heart because of a lot of things that they did for us and helping us grow and helping us kind of structure the way that we grew the Holistic Life Foundation. So they challenged us to come up with a school-wide initiative. We were thinking a practice over the loudspeaker. We had a lot going on, and we were like, well, easiest thing to do is if we could set up like a little oasis in the school for kids to go to, like when they needed just some time away. Like, and during times of crisis, they had a place that they could go that just had a really peaceful vibe, and they could go there and someone was there and could help them with, just listen to them and provide them with some practices and then send them back to class. So our mindful moment rooms are what we came up with. It's definitely turned into an oasis at the school. There's plants, there's waterfalls, there's oil diffusers. There's like inspirational quote posters on the wall. There's lamps so they don't have those crazy like lights on the ceiling that just annoy everyone. And it's working. I mean, the kids refer or self-refer to the room. They go in there. Like I said, our staff starts off with just active and mindful listening because kids aren't listened to. People are always telling them what to do, telling them what their problems are, telling them that they should feel this way or feel that way. So I think our staff really empowers the kids by just sitting and listening and hearing what the kids have to say, giving them a couple practices, giving them some tea, sending them back to class in like 20 minutes. Some schools it's 25 minutes, but it's usually around 20 minutes. They go back to class. I think the hugest thing it's doing is turning situations from punitive to empowering. Usually when a kid gets in trouble in the classroom, they get punished for it. It's like, go to the office, go to the in-school suspension room, you're going to get suspended, you're going to get expelled. But this is an opportunity for them to take control of the situation. Like, it becomes very empowering where they can go and it can just be like, all right, you made this mistake, but you can get you have some skills, you have a resource in our Mindful Moment staff that are in the room that can help you kind of get yourself back to center. And I think two things that I really love about that program are if you look at the referral numbers to the room at the beginning of the school year, they're sky high. Like, there might be some days when like 100 kids might get referred to the room. But then by the end of the school year, those numbers are a lot lower because the kids understand the practices. And we use like that reciprocal teaching model where the kids are becoming teachers as well, leading the practices. So by the end of the school year, the numbers are lower because the kid will be sitting in the classroom and they'll be like, all right, they'll feel themselves starting to get agitated. And instead of having to say, I need to go to the mindful moment room, they're like, all right, I know what I can do right now. And they'll slow themselves down with their breath or mindfulness practice or meditation and not even need to go. And the other thing is the suspension numbers. The suspension numbers have been remarkable. Robert W. Coleman, there hasn't been a suspension. Robert W. Coleman Elementary, there hasn't been a suspension there in pushing 6 years now. At Fort Worthington, the suspension numbers went down from something crazy like 153 the year before we got there to somewhere in like the 70s, and then down to like, I think it was like 35 last year. So it's like the kids like the kids in Baltimore, I mean, the kids everywhere have a lot going on. The kids in Baltimore deal with a lot of trauma, and they don't have any real outlet for it. And I think a lot of the trauma people are seeing as behavior issues, but it's not a behavior issue, it's a trauma issue. So you got to give the kids the skills to kind of deal with it. And the mindfulness practice, the yoga, the meditation, the breath work, all that gives them skills to deal with it. Also, again, the empowerment factor, like they understand how to use the practices in their own lives, not just in the mindful moment room, on a mat or on a cushion, but like in the classroom or walking down the hall of someone, getting an altercation with somebody, out on the bus stop, at home. Like they're really learning how to use these practices in real life practical situations to help them like with the human experience.
That's those numbers are incredible too. From that, all those suspensions to zero, and then the other school, like half and half and half again. I mean, it's so inspiring to just hear that. So how can you? And I know every program is probably different. Every school you work with is different. But I'm curious, like, so how does HLF work in like an ideal scenario? Like you're doing some work in the classrooms, you're also building these mindful spaces in the schools where kids can go, learn those skills, use them themselves, and then also that the kids are also teaching the kids. Can you talk a little bit more about kind of all of these different facets of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so in most of the schools where we have the mindfulness rooms, there's a lot more to the program. I was just talking about the room aspect of it because that's my favorite part, but there's a lot more going on. Like we have staff in the rooms that are very, very well trained, Holistic Life Foundation staff that work there full time. So part of what they do is they'll also go out into the classrooms and do push-ins. So like they'll do like breathing breaks during times of transition, because they're usually the most hectic times in school. So they'll go out, they'll work with the class and do some breath work. They'll do outreach to the kids in the school, so they'll track when the kids are coming into the room. So there might be a kid that's always coming during third period. So like every single day, third period, the kids in the room, the kids in the room, the kids in the room. So they'll actually go to the kids' third period class to see exactly what's going on. Is it an altercation with the student? Is it an altercation with the teacher? Is it something else going on? Like what's going on during that period to see what's going on, to see what's happening. Outreach to the kids that are walking the halls. In schools, we always work with the administrators and the teachers as well, because the practice has to be school-wide or it's not really going to work. Like being a teacher anywhere is very stressful. You're dealing with your own stuff. You're dealing with secondary trauma from the kids. So it's like you need skills to not burn yourself out. And so we always work with the teachers, and it always starts at the top. So you got to start with the principals, the vice principals, and the rest of the administrators. There's schools we work at, particularly Patterson High School, Vance Benton, who's the principal there. He's become like our brother at this point. Really, really awesome dude, very passionate principal. Cared, a huge heart, cares about the kids. But it was one of those things that was weighing on him, and he would like hold on to all this. He'd just be so tense all the time. It was just like a matter of talking him into like, hey, could you give us like 10 minutes, or we can either come to your office or you can come in the room, and we can just do some breath work with you and meditation with you. And he would come, he agreed to it finally. He would walk in with his walkie-talkie on, and they're like, Vance, we need you to, I'm like, please just turn the walkie-talkie off or turn it down. They started off with turning it down, and it was off. And then like once he got into it, like you could see when he was more calm, the entire school was calm, and he got so into the practice that like he practices on his own. He teaches it to his son at home. So I think it's just a matter of like showing him the benefit of like stop, because like it's a long, busy day for him. He has a lot going on, but it's like if he can slow himself down, then the rest of the day is more effective and he's not as stressed out. Another principal, Rhonda Richetta down at City Springs Elementary Middle, like she learned enough of practice when a kid comes into her room, like really, really kind of just wound up and crying and screaming and yelling, and she's trying to talk with them and get them calmed down. She learned enough breathing exercise that she can tell the kid like, hey, let's practice this breath, slow you down, and you can actually tell me what's going on. So the principals see the benefit in their own lives and relating it, like having that common language throughout the school and working with the kids too. So yeah, administrators, teachers, students, even the rest of the staff in the school, not just the teachers, but like the custodial staff or like whoever, the secretaries, anybody. Like it's got to be a school-wide thing to really make a shift.
It really does. It really, I mean, it really does, I think, trickle down and trickle out. And I keep reading these articles about how mindfulness and compassion and all of this stuff is contagious. that it really spreads from kid to kid. It really spreads from kids to teachers, from teachers back to kids. And then I think, the way you're working with, or you're working holistically, but with the whole system, the principal, everybody in the building. And that's really what starts to change the culture. I think, too many times we go on hot, like I'm going to just teach this one kid, or I'm just going to focus here, but you have to really work with the whole system in that bigger picture way, I think, to create the biggest difference and impact, and to keep it really sustainable. And I know you've really pioneered that work. Do you work with parents as well, and other people in the community outside of schools?
We try to work with parents. I know at a lot of schools it's hard, particularly some of the schools in Baltimore, because the parents are, they gotta work. They gotta work to take care of their families. So it's not like they can. So like my kids go to the school that me and my brother went to, Friends School of Baltimore, and like when you go to something there, like the parents have enough like financial leeway to kind of show up to stuff. You know what I mean? Like they could have a assembly at 10 a.m. on a Thursday, you know what I mean? And all the parents are there. But like if they had something at 10 a.m. at some of the schools we work at, the parents can't get off from work, so it's a little harder. So I think we try to work with the parents as much as we can. We'll have like talent showcases for the students, and the parents will show up, and we'll slip some yoga and some mindfulness sessions in there. I think the biggest thing that we do for the parents is turn their kids into teachers. So like the kid, if you come to some of our programs, the kids, most of our programs, the kids are actually leading the practices. So they go home, so they're able to identify what stress and anger and all these things look like in themselves and the people and their peers. So they can do the same thing for their parents. And then because they're leading the practices, they know the benefits of the practice, they know how to teach, and they know how to adjust them for different people. So they can walk home and see their mom or dad stressed out. Like, hey, I can see the stress on you. I mean, they know, the kids know, like if mom and dad's stressed out, that's getting taken out on me. So it's better me stop this right now, and I can sit my mom or dad down, or grandma, whoever it is, down and meditate with them, or practice some breath work with them, and slow them down and kind of ease that tension, and the rest of my night's going to be better too. So I think the kids becoming teachers is the biggest way we've impacted the parents.
Yeah, that's incredible when you see that, or when you hear that story. You're like, you must probably get that sometimes from parents, like the kids came home and they taught me this and it worked. And, just watching that ripple just start to keep moving outward and upward in all directions. I mean, that must be so fun and inspiring to see.
Yeah, we didn't even know what was happening. Like it was just something that a parent told us about. We were like, wow. And then we thought about, like, well, I guess if we are turning these kids into teachers when we're working with them, like they're going to go out and teach. And like you said, the ripples, like that's how we made the biggest ripples in community, not from us going into a school, but like and working with like 300 kids, but going to school, working with 300 kids and trying to turn all of them into teachers so that they can go out and they can make those ripples, because that's how the real changes are going to be made.
Yeah. Have any kids come back to work for Holistic Life Foundation that you've worked with? Has that happened yet, or not so much quite yet?
Nah, most of our program staff are former students of ours. So Andy and I are stuck in the office these days, like doing administrative roles. But like most of our program staff are former students of ours, kids that have gone through our after-school program, our mentoring program, and our workforce development program. And then we've hired, or some of them may be kids that we picked up in high school at a certain school that have like a real kind of affinity and attraction to the practice. And then we work with them through our workforce development program and hired them. So yeah, a lot of our staff are kids that we've known since they were little kids.
That's incredible. So do you work K through 12? You start with like K and pre-K and all the way through?
Yep, pre-K through 12 in the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the challenges that people might face, or lessons learned, in terms of the work that you've done, mistakes made early on, or that you could offer to people getting started in this work, going into different schools or trying to build their program? Do you have any advice for folks and experience that you've had?
Yeah, I got a few. One is don't bite off more than you can chew. Start off small. We made the mistake a few times of trying to jump to do more than we were actually had the capacity to do. Like even if you're starting in one classroom, fine, you're helping somebody. Like if you got to start with like a small after-school mindfulness program, like group or something, like start there. Collect some data, even if it's something simple. Like you got people want to see numbers about what you're doing. Even if it can be something simple, but just collect some data and have your own practice. I think that's the most important thing to all this is the authenticity factor. Like if you're taking the time and you have your own practice, like the practice is gonna, like you'll embody it, it'll kind of shine through you and they'll see it in your interactions. It won't just be you roll out a mat or sit on a meditation cushion or seeing it there. You'll see it in your other interactions with yourself, with other people, with parents, with kids, with everybody. So it's just, I think that is the most important part is to have your own personal practice before you go out and try to share this with other people.
Absolutely. And so I want to turn now to talk a little bit more about kind of thinking about connection and compassion and trying to cultivate that in the communities where we're all working. I know that's a big part of your mission and you know the mission that you're doing too, not just sort of in theory. Can you talk a little bit about that, about connection and compassion and how you're trying to really build that with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think that when we first got into this work, I think we were wondering, you know what I mean, like people just didn't seem to care about other people. You know what I mean, like no one, there was seemed to be a certain sense of apathy and like nothing, there was no real connection like with a lot of people. Like there just weren't those genuine, authentic connections between people. And then we really started to look at it was because people weren't connected to themselves. Like I can't expect somebody to care about their neighbor or a stranger or the environment or anything. Like if you're not connected to yourself and you just don't have that sense of self-worth and self-love, I cannot ask you to care about or love or worry about stewarding the planet. Like that's not really a realistic thing. So I think we worked really hard with getting the kids to connect to themselves first. And once they connected to themselves, then they were able to kind of see themselves in others and other situations. I think that's where the compassion really starts to come from is like that deep connection to yourself and having that self-love and that self-worth. And then you can see that you'll start to, the love has to ripple out. It can't just be something that's external from you that you're pulling from or doing. Like for it to really work, it's got to come from within and then shine out. So I think that whole, once you can get kids to, or adults too, I mean, it's everybody. Like you got to connect to yourself first and love yourself first, and then you can start to love other people and other things and be a steward of the environment because it all goes hand in hand, but it's got to start within first.
I think that's so true, and I really like how you talk about it as connection to yourself before we are then connecting to others and connecting to the planet and our larger communities and all of it. And that is, as you said, that really is where love and compassion really do start to ripple out from. It really has to start with, am I connected to myself? Am I inhabiting my body fully? Am I, really truly connected with what my experience is? And then that starts to just, without even trying, I think, then it starts to more naturally even just ripple out. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely becomes like a part of who you are instead of something you have to try to do. I think you hit it right on the head with that. When it's like you're trying to do it, it's just like becomes the natural way of who you are and the way you interact with yourself and others.
Right, absolutely. Can you, and then, I think there's this question also, like, can we train people explicitly in compassion, or should we be just trying to cultivate it in them and then it starts to ripple out? And I guess another question I have is how do you train your staff? Like, because they're out there building connections with these kids, and maybe some of them from those communities, some of them not so much. Can you talk a bit about how you select your staff, how you work with them, how you help them really embody this practice that they can connect and teach it?
So the compassion thing, I think compassion can be taught, but I think it has to go hand in hand with that self-love and I think it has to go hand in hand. It can't just, maybe it does work, I don't know, but I just know in our experience, the Holistic Life Foundation, like there also has to be the connection with yourself and the self-love to go along with the teaching of compassion, because like you can show someone how to treat someone and that's going to have an impact. But if they feel it and it's a part of who they are, it's not something they're thinking about. It's something it's a part of who they are and they're embodying it. Our staff, a lot of them, like I said, a lot of them are former students, and then we just opened it up as a workforce development program. And we train them a lot around professionalism, around dealing with trauma, secondary trauma and dealing with the trauma that kids go through and being trauma informed. And we train a lot around the practice. First, it's around developing their own personal practice. Then it's around delivering the practice. Because like I keep saying, like it's about having your own personal practice. It makes everything a lot easier when you're delivering these practices to others. You can speak from a place of experience and not theory, kind of, and then you're embodying it, and they see you as being a mindful individual because of your interactions with yourself and others, and just how you carry yourself. They see you embodying the practice. So yeah, and then it's like after they graduate through our workforce development program, it's an apprenticeship program where they're working with one of our senior staff, and they're kind of shadowing them and helping them teach the practices. Then after the apprenticeship program, we can turn loose to do some teaching. So the process usually takes for youth that are just fresh, like haven't been through our programs at all, and they're just kind of coming to us like, hey, we want to start. It's usually about a year. That's what it takes before we can turn them loose and let them start teaching on their own. Some of them, it may be a little faster because they may practice a lot on their own. Like they're taking the time to really, really get into it. And they're like, you know what I mean? Like so they're leading themselves through a class in the mirror, and they're just taking the time to meditate every day and talking themselves through it. Like they get there a little faster, but it's usually about a year.
Yeah. So I guess, the last kind of questions I want to start to finish up with, like what's coming next? I know you've got some new initiatives, some satellite programs, you're creating some online teaching components to reach more people. Can you fill us in about how you're trying to reach more people and reach more places?
Yeah, so our satellite initiative is probably one of the things I'm most excited about and have been most, like, it's just, I don't know, it's really exciting to me. Because Atman and I, we travel around. I mean, I guess, and some of our senior staff too, we travel a lot to go like facilitate programs or train, but it lacks a certain amount of sustainability, and sometimes the practices, like the fidelity, might not be what we want it to be because people aren't going to take the time to really kind of do the work to really master the practice to be able to teach it effectively. So, and another thing we've always thought about is like the best solutions to a situation are homegrown. Like I think, like you can go somewhere and you can work, but I think it means a little more when it's a homegrown solution to the problem. And yeah, our satellite program it kind of deals with a lot of those issues. So we're starting off in 2 cities. It'll be Salmon River, which is the Mohawk Reservation, upstate New York, and Miami and Dade County area. And what we'll do is we'll have 2 of our senior staff actually move to those cities for an entire year. We find a program director for those cities, like our point person, and then we'll train, Andy and I will go in and train 18 to 24-year-olds in the practice, and they'll spend an entire year shadowing our senior staff, and our senior staff will work in schools, they'll work in the community, they'll just work everywhere just so that the people in the apprenticeship program can actually just follow them and see what they're doing, because you got to be able to teach everywhere. It looks a little different, so it can't just be in the schools, it's got to be out in the community and different types of schools too, public schools, private schools, like wherever you can go to kind of get the work there. And the program director is the one that's going to coordinate that and set that all up. And at the end of that year, they'll have a handful of very, very, very well trained and also authentic teachers too, because a part of the apprenticeship program is practicing Monday through Friday for about an hour and a half with our senior staff. That's one thing that our teacher did for us, was that we practiced with him every day. Like we did it every day because we were all gung-ho about it. We figured Monday through Friday, we get him for an hour and a half to like really go through, and not how to teach the practice, but just only on your personal practice for that entire year. And yeah, so just some authentic, really good teachers at the end of that year. And either our staff will stick around for year 2 or they'll move on to the next city. But yeah, Salmon River and Miami are the 2 places we're going to start off with that.
That's incredible. And I think, as you said, like having it be homegrown, not like Holistic Life is coming to town and we're going to do it our way, like moving in like Walmart, like, no, how do we partner with who's there, bring people in, build a program, grow it organically, and dedicating that amount of time and effort is, I think, just what's going to make it so successful. I mean, that's incredible, and that's really inspiring to hear about the way you're doing it that way.
I mean, we really wanted to be sustainable. We really wanted to be successful. We know it's going to take time. There are people that want to rush it. Like, okay, I'm going to take this weekend long workshop, and then I'm going to go teach mindfulness. I mean, it's hard to develop your own personal practice in a weekend. You know what I mean? Like, you're definitely not going to be able to really teach it effectively. So it's like, let's really take the time and come up with some, develop them. Like, we don't want to rush it. We want to take our time. Like, well, I know when we first looked at the program, we were looking at less time than that. But when we really thought about what's been successful here, it's about, like I said earlier, it's about a year that it takes for someone to go through the apprenticeship, get trained, and be ready. And also the confidence factor is key too. So, like, you can have the skills, but like the confidence level of walking into a room and working with someone, whether some people are nervous about working with kids, some people are nervous about working with adults, but people have different things that they're nervous about. But if you have time over that entire year to work with some kids, to work with some adults, work with some public schools, some private schools, you're working in the corporate sector, you're working in drug treatment centers, like, you're getting a diverse experience. So, like, at the end of that year, you're used to teaching a lot of different types of populations.
Right. And what about you're doing some online work too, or creating some online videos, some animated versions of you guys?
Yeah, so we did our program's called Bridging Academics in the Mind, BAM for short, and we wanted to figure out a way to help teachers use the practices in the classroom, but not be a burden, because teachers get a lot of things thrown at them, and to effectively teach the practice, it takes a long time. Teachers not going to want to spend. I mean, some may, but I know if I was a teacher and if I was working hard the entire school year and I got my summer, if I didn't have to work somewhere to cover my bills, I would want to relax. I wouldn't want to spend it all in training. I don't want to recharge my battery. So we had to figure out a way to have the practices in the school and be delivered with really high fidelity in the right way. So we came up with this idea where we're going to use animations, audio recordings, a curriculum. And it's in 3 stages. There's like the teaching phase where the teachers will use the audio recordings or the animations, and we'll go through, just like we would do if we were teaching a group of kids, hey, this is what this practice is, these are the benefits, this is what it does to your body, physiologically, neurologically, and then go through the practice. Then there's a practice phase where it's like, we won't talk about all the benefits, we'll just jump straight into the practice. Then there's the phase where the kids are coming to the front of the room and they're actually leading the practices. The teachers have cue cards, like prompt cards or cue cards with, like, if they forget something, like, hey, this breath is good for stress and this is how you do it. So it's like going through the model that we use, but in a more online way that's less pressure on the teachers. And even in the curriculum, there's like a list of combinations of practices. So like the teacher knows, like, hey, if you're coming back from lunch or gym and the kids are like a little wild, use these combination practices. Or if you're taking standardized tests and the kids just can't really focus and a little nervous, use this combination of practices. If it's the morning, the kids' energy is low, use this combination. If they're excited, so it's like very situational, and we give them the blueprint for how to use the things to make it really successful and make it as easy as possible for them.
Which is just so great to be able to reach more people that way. And then, as you said, also like having the kids actually really get involved in the teaching is so empowering and really makes them embody it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So Ali, thank you so much. Anything else you want to add before we wind it up? But thank you for this.
I can't think of anything else, but you're very welcome. It was good to be a part of it again.
And how can people get in touch with Holistic Life Foundation? Just through your website and finding you on there. And I know, you've got TED Talks online. We can read about you so many places. What's the best way to reach out?
Best place is the website, hlfinc.org, like Holistic Life Foundation, hlfinc.org. You can find all of our contact information on there, our phone, whatever. You can get in contact with us. Social media, we got a decent stuff on Facebook and Instagram. We should be more on Twitter, but we're not.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ali Smith, co-founder, executive director of the Holistic Life Foundation, based in Baltimore, and now spreading far beyond there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet. Take care.